What's up, everybody? Welcome to Jump Wave. Today, we're going to be doing a cover of the classic theme to the X-Men animated series on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. This song is in the key of C minor and it has a tempo of 122 beats per minute. So let's go ahead and set our tempo on the Volca. First thing we're going to do is clear our pattern by holding down Function and selecting Step 16 All. Now, let's set up our samples. On part 1, we're going to have sample 000, kick thick. On part 2, we're going to have sample 18, snare tight. On part 3, we're going to have sample 54, O.Hat loud. On part 4, we're going to have sample 126, bass filter synth. On part 5, we're going to have sample 102, vintage pad. On part 6, we're going to have sample 120, Dyna strings. On part 7, we're going to have sample 119, minor choir. On part 8, we're going to have sample 54, O.Hat loud again. And on part 9, we're going to have sample 66, tom gated. And on part 10, we're going to have sample 99, spoon bells. Now that we have our sample set up, let's begin programming our pattern. So let's start with the drums, go over to part 1, we're going to go to step mode, and we're going to put a kick on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. Let's shorten the decay to about 50. We want a really tight kick drum. Now let's move over to part 2. We're going to put a snare on steps 5 and 13. And on part 3, we're going to put a hi-hat on every step. Let's shorten the decay to about 25. And we're going to do a high cut at about 115. Now let's move over to part 4. And we're going to put a bass note on every step here. But if we hit play, we're going to hear our sample triggered on each step, but it's only playing one note. And we want it to play different notes. So how do we do that? Well, we can change the note values per step by holding down the step. And while we hold it down, we press and hold Function, and then we turn the speed knob here, and that will change the note values for that specific step. So each note value is going to be one semitone. Now our bass sample is tuned to a C note. So that means starting at C, C is going to be 0, 1's going to be C sharp, 2 is going to be D, 3 is going to be D sharp, so on and so forth. And we can also go into the negative. So C is still 0, -1 is going to be B, -2 is going to be B flat, -3 is going to be A, so on and so forth. So it goes 24 note values in both directions, giving us a 4-octave range to play with here. So let's change these notes. Steps 1 through 4 are going to be a low C. So we're going to press and hold all 4 steps. So yeah, you can do this with more than one step at a time. So press and hold all 4 steps. While continuing to hold, press and hold Function. Now take your finger off the steps. You can see the steps are now blinking. That tells us that we can now edit some changes here, and they're going to be locked in. So we're going to take the speed knob and we're going to turn this down to -12, and that's going to give us a low C note. And now if we hit play, we can hear that it is now playing a different note value. So we're going to do the same thing for the rest of the steps. Steps 5 and 6 are going to be a low D sharp -9. 7 and 8 are going to be that low C -12 again. Steps 9 through 12 are going to be that low D sharp -9. Steps 13 and 14 are going to be a low F -7. And steps 15 and 16 are going to be D sharp -9 again. All right, let's listen to it. All right, so let's tighten this up a little bit. Let's turn the decay to about 40. And we're going to turn the start time of the sample up to make this a little sharper. It's going to give us that more of that, like that classic like FM bass sound. Cool. So let's move over to our lead part now on part 5. Now, if we listen to the sample, it doesn't really sound like a lead part. It's a pad. So how are we going to make a lead part out of this? Well, we're going to take advantage of the Volca Sample's loop function to create some sustained tones that we can then shape and tune. So if we turn on the loop mode, we're going to go to function and press step 11. Now that we have loop mode on, it's got that light there telling us that loop mode is on. And if we play this part now, we can hear that the sample begins to repeat. It starts to loop. So when the sample gets to the end of its length, it repeats. And if we adjust the length of the sample, it's going to repeat faster. And if we make the sample really short, it's going to give us some sustained tones, kind of like an oscillator. And if we adjust the start point just right, we can set the pitch of the sample to a C note. So again, we can change the note values just like we did with our bass. So we're going to set the start point at 2, and we're going to set the length at 4. And that's going to give us a C note. So let's go to step mode, and we're going to put notes on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13 again. And we want them all to be a C note. So we could just leave it as it is, but I like to lock the note values in just in case this knob gets turned or something like that, or something else happens. So we're going to lock these in at 0. So we're going to hold down the step while continuing to hold. We press and hold function, and then we're going to turn the speed knob. We're just going to wiggle it and then bring it back to 0 to lock in those note values at 0. So let's listen to it real quick. All right, now let's turn the decay down. Turn the decay to about 50. All right, cool. Now let's move over to the strings part on part 6. So same thing here. We're going to put a note on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13, and set the decay at 50. And for this one, we're going to do a little high cut at about 115. Cool. So we don't need to do anything on part 7 right now. We're just kind of working on the intro right here. So we're going to skip that for now. We're going to skip over to part 8. And this is going to be another hi-hat, but we're going to set the decay of this hi-hat at 80. We're going to open this one up a little bit more than the first hi-hat. And we're going to do a high cut at about 120. And we're going to put a hi-hat on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. All right, cool. So we don't need to do anything for parts 9 and 10 right now. So we're kind of done with this pattern. So let's go ahead and let's mute parts 5 and 6 for now, and that will become apparent later. I'll explain why. But let's go ahead and let's save this pattern. And we save a pattern by holding down function, selecting memory, and now it's going to give us all these 16 slots to save a pattern on. So we're going to save it onto pattern 1, and we're going to save it onto pattern 2. Now we're on memory 2, and it's very similar to memory 1 with a few changes. So the drums and bass on parts 1 through 4 are going to stay the same. It's the lead parts that are going to change slightly. So let's go over to 5 and 6. Let's unmute them now. So you can mute and unmute by holding down the mute button and then selecting which steps you want to turn on and off. Which parts you want to turn on and off. So let's turn 5 and 6 back on. And we're going to leave the notes on steps 1 and 5 the same. And we're going to turn on the steps 9 through 16. And steps 9 through 12 are going to be C0 again. So again, you don't have to change them because that's our starting point. But again, I like to lock them in just in case. Step 13 is going to be a low C. So it does a little run here at the end, a little scale run at the end here. So we're going to go down to -12C. Step 14 is going to be a low G -5. Step 15 is going to be C0 again. And step 16 is going to be D sharp +3. Now moving over to part 6, we're going to do the exact same thing. So turn on steps 9 through 16, and it's going to be the same notes. So if you haven't noticed already, 5 and 6 are going to literally just play the same thing. But they sound different, so they're kind of layered, and it's going to give us a nice lead sound for our song. So again, on part 9, or excuse me, step 9, that's 9 through 12, excuse me, are going to be C0. And step 13 is that low C, -12. Step 14 is going to be the low G, -5. 15, C0 again. And step 16 is D sharp +3. And let's skip over to part 9 now. This is our toms part. And we're going to put toms on steps 13 through 16. And we're going to detune some of these steps to make them sound like a tom fill on multiple toms. So step 15, we're going to turn the pitch down to 12 here. Now you don't have to hold down function for this because it's not a secondary function. This is the primary function. It's the pitch of the envelope intensity. So you don't have to hold down function. And the same goes for all these. You don't have to hold down function. You can turn any of these knobs and it's going to lock it in. It's only for that speed value one that you have to hold down function because it's a secondary function. If you just turn the speed knob, all you're going to affect is the speed, not the note values. So we're going to turn step 15. We're going to turn the pitch down to 12. And we're going to turn step 16, we're going to turn the pitch down to 24. All right, let's give it a listen. There you go. So you can, if we solo part 10 here, you can hear how the toms, oh, excuse me, if we solo part 9. Gives it a little bit of a, more, realistic sound of, of a tom fill. All right, cool. So let's turn all these back on. And we're going to save it now. We're going to save it onto memory 2, and we're going to save it onto memory 3. All right, so memory 1 and 2 are the intro parts, and memory 3 now is where we start to get into the main theme of the song. So the drums and bass, again, parts 1 through 4 are the same. Let's go ahead. Let's mute part 9 because we don't need the toms here. Again, we're just going to be changing the lead parts here on 5 and 6. So starting on part 5, we're going to have notes on steps 1, 5, 7, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So notes on 1, 5, 7, 13 through 16. Now, step 1 is going to be a D +2. Sorry, I hit the mic there. Step 5 is going to be C0. Step 7 is going to be G -5. And steps 13 through 16 are going to be the same. They're the same notes as our memory 2. So let's move over to part 6. We're going to do the same thing. So notes on steps 1, 5, 7, 13 through 16. and they're the same notes again because we're just layering these parts. So step 1, it's going to be D positive 2. Step, what happened there? Step 5 is going to be C0. Step 7, G negative 5, excuse me. And steps 13 through 16 are the same. So let's listen. All right, so you can start to hear that's that first measure of the theme. Cool. So let's go ahead. Let's save it now on memory 3. And let's save it onto memory 4. All right, moving right along. Memory 4 is almost exactly the same as memory 3 with the exception of step 7 on parts 5 and 6. So let's go to 5. Let's go to part 5. And on step 7, this is going to be a G sharp negative 4. So it's one semitone up, one note up from the G. And same thing on part 6. It's going to be G sharp negative 4. Let's listen. Cool. Let's save it onto memory 4. And let's save it onto memory 5. All right, let's go to part 5 now. And we're going to turn off steps 13 through 16. And we're going to change step 7 again to D positive 3. And same thing for part 6. We're going to turn off steps 13 through 16. And step 7, we're going to change this to D positive 3. All right, let's listen. Cool. All right, let's save this one now. We're going to save it onto memory 5. And we're going to save it onto memory 6. And we're going to save it onto memory 9. So let's load back up memory 6. And we have a little bit more work here. So let's go to part 5. And step 1 is going to be D positive 2. Step 3 is going to be C0. Step 5 is going to be low G negative 5. Step 6 is going to be low A negative 3. Step 7 is going to be low A sharp negative 2. Step 8 is going to be low B negative 1. Step 9 is going to be C0. Now on step 13, we're going to have a low F negative 7. Step 14 is going to be C0. Step 15 is going to be F positive 5. And step 16 is going to be G sharp positive 8. Same thing on part 6. So step 1, D positive 2. Step 3, C0. Step 5, low G, negative 5. Step 6, low A, negative 3. Step 7 is the low A sharp, negative 2. Step 8, low B, negative 1. Step 9, C0. 13, low F, negative 7. Step 14, C0. Step 15, F positive 5. And step 16, G sharp, positive 8. Now let's unmute our tom parts on part 9. We're going to turn those back on. And let's listen. Sounds good. Let's save it onto memory 6. Let's save it onto memory 7. Let's save it onto memory 10. And let's load back up memory 7 now. So this is the part of the main theme where it modulates up. So not only do we change our lead part, but we need to change our bass part as well. So let's go over to part 4. And steps 1 through 4 are going to be F -7. So hold down all 4 steps. We're going to go F -7, so low F. And on steps 5 through 6, 5 and 6 are going to be G sharp -4. 7 and 8 are going to be -7F again. Steps 9 through 12 are G sharp -4. Steps 13 and 14 are -2 A sharp. And steps 15 and 16 are G sharp -4. Moving over to part 5 now. Step 1 is going to be G +7. We can turn off step 3. Step 5 is going to be F +5. Turn off step 6. Step 7 is going to be C0. Turn off steps 8 and 9. Step 13 is going to be F -7. Step 14 is C0. Step 15 is going to be F +5. And step 16 is going to be G sharp +8. Moving over to part 6 now. Same thing. Let's turn off steps. Turn off those steps. Step 1, again, G +7. Step 5, F +5. Step 7, C0. Step 13, F -7. Step 14, C0. 15, F +5. And step 16, G sharp +8. Let's mute part 9 again. And let's listen. Sounds good. Let's save it onto memory 7. And let's save it onto memory 8. Okay, so the bass is the same as memory 7, but the lead changes again. So on part 5, we're going to change step 7 to a C sharp +1. And step 13 is going to be low C -12. Step 14 is going to be low G -5. Step 15 is going to be C0. And step 16 is going to be D sharp +3. Same thing for part 6. Change step 7, C sharp +1. Step 13, -12 C. Step 14, low G -5. Step 15, C0. And step 16, D sharp +3. All right, let's listen. So let's save it just on memory 8 now. Just save it on memory 8 because we've already saved memory patterns 9 and 10 here. So yeah, so memory 9 is good. Let's load up memory 10. And all we're going to do here is we're going to turn off steps 13, 14, 15, and 16 on parts 5 and 6. So we're just going to turn those off. And let's save it onto memory 10. And let's save it onto memory 11. Now, memory 11 is where things get a little crazy. This is the triplet section. And I had to get a little creative to squeeze this part in. Now, first, we have to make a triplet pattern. So how do you do that on a 16-step grid? Well, one way is to go to active step. So you can do that by holding down function and hitting the play button. Now, this brings up the active step setting. So what you can basically do if you want to get a triplet here is you can turn off 4 steps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off steps 4, 9, 12, and 16. You don't have to. You could turn off 13 through 16 and still do this. But for me, it's easier for me to visualize this if I just turn off 4, 8, 12, and 16. Now we can just hit play. Yeah, you can hear it now. So now it's like playing like a triplet pattern. And you can keep that by just hitting function, and that takes you out of the active step mode. So now we can program our notes and we'll be in, you know, kind of a triplet pattern. Let's go over to the drums here because the drums are going to change. So let's go to part 2 here, and we're going to turn the snares off. We don't really need the snares. Part 3, let's turn off our hi-hats except on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. And over on part 4, we're going to change our bass notes. So we don't need 4, 8, 12, and 16. They won't play anyways, but let's just turn them off just so, you know, we keep the same visual here. On steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. So let's go 1, 5, 9, and 13. If you don't got huge hands, you might not be able to do that move, but you know, do what you can. We're going to change these to a G sharp -4. And on steps 2, 6, 10, and 14, we're going to have G -5. And on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15, we're going to have a F -7. Now move over to part 5, and we're going to do the same thing here. So same notes, same note values, same pattern, everything. So 4, 5, and 6 are just going to be layered, playing identical parts here. So steps 1, 5, 9, and 13 going to be G sharp -4. Steps 2, 6, 10, and 14 are going to be G -5. And steps 3, 7, 11, and 15 are going to be F -7. All right. Same thing on part 6. Same notes, same changes, same everything. This would be a good time for me to maybe advocate to Korg, maybe request a copy paste feature, maybe on the Volca 3, you know, Volca Sample 3, if you get around to it. Copy paste would be cool. Just saying. But we do appreciate you, Korg. Here we go. Steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. G sharp -4, steps 2, 6, 10, and 14, G -5, and steps 3, 7, 11, and 15, F -7. Now let's go over to part 7 now, which we haven't done anything with this part yet, because this is our choir part, and this part really only comes in during the triplet section. So we're going to put notes on steps 1 and 9, and these are going to be F -7. All right, let's listen. Let's go to part 9, turn those toms off. All right, sounds good. Only one problem. It's too fast. So, how are we going to fix this? Well, we need to turn our tempo down. So our tempo is at 122. We need to turn it down to 91.5. Sounds like a radio station, but it's not. It's our tempo, 91.5. Why 91.5 BPM? Well, we removed 25% of our steps. We took out 4 out of 16 steps. So we need to decrease our speed. We need to decrease our beats per minute by 25% to compensate and keep the same relative tempo throughout. If that doesn't make any sense, stay with me. I'll explain it later in the video when I talk about how to play it all together. Anyways, let's listen to it now with our new tempo. Cool. Let's save it onto memory 11, and let's save it onto memory 12. Okay, so our drums are going to stay the same. We're going to change our bass part on part 4. Steps 1, 5, 9, and 13 are going to be A sharp -2. Steps 2, 6, 10, and 14 are going to be G sharp -4. And steps 3, 7, 11, and 15 are going to be G -5. Same thing for part 5. Steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. A sharp -2. Steps 2, 6, 10, and 14. G sharp -4. And steps 3, 7, 11, and 15 are going to be G -5. And same thing for part 5. Or excuse me, part 6. 1, 5, 9, 13. A sharp -2. 2, 6, 10, 14. What happened? Oh. 2, 6, 10, and 14 are G sharp -4. And 3, 7, 11, 15 are G -5. Move over to part 7 now, and we're going to change our choir notes to G -5. Let's listen. Sounds good. Let's save it onto memory 12, and let's save it onto memory 13. All right, on to part 4, steps 1, 5, and 9. Just 1, 5, and 9 are going to be C0. Steps 2, 6, and 10. Oop, hit the mic again. 2, 6, and 10 are going to be A sharp -2. And steps 3, 7, and 11 are going to be G sharp -4. Now, step 13 now is going to be A sharp -2. Step 14 is going to be C0. And step 15 is going to be G sharp +8. Same thing for part 5 now. Steps 1, 5, and 9 are C0. Steps 2, 6, and 10, A sharp -2. And steps 3, 7, and 11 are G sharp -4. And step 13, A sharp -2. Step 14, C0. And step 15, G sharp +8. Part 6, same thing. 1, 5, and 9 are C0. 2, 6, and 10 are A sharp -2. And 3, 7, and 11, G sharp -4. Step 13, A sharp -2. Step 14, C0. And step 15, G sharp +8. Over to part 7, we're going to change our choir notes now to C0. And let's listen. Sounds good. Let's save it onto memory 13. And let's save it onto memory 14. All right, so this one's a little different. First, let's go and turn our steps back on. So let's go to active step mode. We're going to turn steps 4, 8, 12, and 16 back on. Now let's go over to part 1, and we only want to kick on step 1. We don't want to kick anywhere else. Step 3, we only want that hi-hat, or excuse me, part 3, we only want that hi-hat on step 1. Same thing on part 8 there. We only want that hi-hat on the first step. Let's go over to our bass now on part 4. We're going to put a G. Turn off all these steps here. We're going to put a G +7 on step 1. And let's turn the decay all the way up to 127 there. And on step 13, we're going to have a low C -12. And on step 13, excuse me, step 14, we're going to have G -5. Step 15, C0. And on step 16, D sharp +3. Same thing for part 5. We only want note on step 1. This is a G +7. And we'll turn the decay all the way up for that one. And step 13 is going to be low C, -12. Step 14, G, -5. 15, C, 0. And step 16, D sharp, +3. Same thing for part 6. Turn off all these steps. G, +7. Turn the decay up. Step 13, C, -12. Step 14, G, -5. Step 15, C, 0. And step 16 is the G sharp, +3. Now over to part 7, we're going to add a +7 G here on steps 1, 5, and 9. And we're going to turn the loop mode on here for this part to kind of extend the sample out a little bit, because it's so high pitched that the sample kind of doesn't carry all the way through the pattern. So if we just add some extra steps and then we turn the loop mode on, we can extend the sample out a little bit. So we're going to do that. We're going to set the length of the sample at 100 and the decay at 110. So that's going to kind of blend it a little bit. So part 8, we have our hi-hat. We don't need to do anything there. Part 9, we don't need to do anything. Part 10, this is where it gets kind of interesting. In the original song, they have like this like gong sound that kind of comes in like at the last kind of like half beat of the measure. But we have this bell, kind of spoons bell sound here that's kind of cool. So, you know, I don't know. You can do this one, or alternatively, you can, there's like a claw, well, not claw, but it's like a knife sharpening sound. So either one of those will work. I actually kind of like the knife sharpening sound. It sounds like Wolverine's claws to me. So we're going to leave that one in, and we're going to put that on step 13. So we just have to make sure that we don't have anything on part 9 for our toms, because these are choke parts, 9 and 10. So they're going to cancel each other out. You can only have one part play per each step at a time. So just make sure your toms are off there for this part, so you can have that cool kind of Wolverine claw sound come in. So let's listen to it, see what it sounds like. Cool. And you can hear how that sample that choir sound kind of extends out a little bit, and then the cool claw sound. Awesome. Let's save it onto memory 14. Now let's load back up memory 3. And we're going to save it onto memory 15. And let's go to part 5, go to step mode. And let's turn off steps 14, 15, and 16. And let's tune step 13 to a G -5. And do the same thing for part 6. So turn off 14, 15, and 16 and tune this to a -5 G. And let's save it onto memory 15 now. And let's save it onto memory 16. Now memory 16, we're going to go through all these and we're going to turn off everything except what's on step 1. So we don't need anything except step 1. This is the last note of the song. All right. And we have to do it separately because it's a different note than the rest of our parts here. So let's go over to part 4, and we're going to turn this to a C0. Same thing for part 5. That's going to be a C0. And yeah, so that's all we got there. Let's listen. Yeah, that's it. Just ends. Okay, cool. Let's save that on to memory 16. All right. Now we're done programming all of our parts. So let's talk about how to play it. Let's turn our tempo back up to 120 beats per minute. And we're going to play pattern 1. So we're going to load up pattern 1 here. We're going to play pattern 1 through 2 times. So let it play through 2 times. Now, on the 3rd time around, we're going to unmute parts 5 and 6. Then we're going to load up pattern 2 before it ends. We're going to let that play through. All right. Once that plays through, then we're going to load up pattern 3 through 14. All right. So how do we do that? We chain patterns. So the cool feature of the Volca Sample 2 is pattern chaining. So you can press and hold the step, the memory you want to load, while continuing to hold, press the last step or the last pattern you want to chain together. And now it tells us on our screen now patterns 13 through 14 are chained together. So they're going to play in sequence. When we hit play, they're going to play right through all together. So let's listen. Now, when you get to that triplet part, you're going to have to get quick with it and turn that tempo down. Then when it goes back to when it hits pattern 14 here, you're gonna have to jump it back up again. So it takes a little bit of practice, but I'm sure you can figure it out. And you don't have to be precise with it. You don't have to be, exactly 91.5 beats per minute. You don't have to be exactly 22 beats per minute. Music's not like that. Music is not, exact science. A lot of it's just, just kind of the feeling. So if you get that feeling of that kind of relative tempo by messing with this during that triplet part, that's all, you really need to do. You don't have to be exact with it. But that's it. That's the song, y'all. Let me know in the comments what you thought. What did I miss? What samples would you have used instead? And what other songs would you like to hear me cover on the Volca? If you like this video. And if you dig what I'm doing on this channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.